All right. I've had an extremely busy day today, but I know you're not going to let me go forward until I ask you about your day today, Laura. How's your day been?
Well, I started out in the gym. I've been sticking to it ever since our Nick Baumgartner episode. Very proud of myself.
He's doing qualifications right now.
I follow him, all his stuff. Have you seen his cute little reels with his little stomp and then he's like on the snow? I'm like,
he's come a long way.
Yeah.
He's come a long way.
I love him. But other than that, the gym and then, that's about it. So far, and now I'm talking to you.
Well, let's get into this because I think we've got a really cool guest today with a lot of things that probably we're going to learn. And if we're going to learn something, hopefully that means everybody else is going to learn something too.
All right, let's go.
Let's do it.
Live from Times Square, it's Pop Recovery Systems, led by visionary Laura Alexis. Pop Recovery Systems, redefining surgical recovery with bariatric expert Dr. Eric Smith. Innovating surgical preparation and recovery, Pop Recovery Systems blends nutrition, mental health, and wellness.
Breaking through the noise and changing an industry. Join Laura Alexis and Dr. Eric Smith on the Pop Culture Podcast.
I'm so super stoked for our guest today. This is not only an amazing human being, but this is my friend. And, she has an amazing story, but we bonded on a similar hardship that we went through, which we're going to talk about. I'm not going to spoil it in the beginning. But this is all about overcoming hard times with mental strength. So it is my pleasure to introduce you to two-time award-winning motivational speaker, Alana Moor. Alana!
Hi! Yay! Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I feel so honored.
I'm excited to meet you. I've heard all these great things. So
thanks, Eric. It's nice to meet you. High five.
Yeah. So before we get into the thing, I always like to start at the beginning. And one thing that I always was very fascinated about when we started getting to know each other is how you used to dance and play soccer. And that's how you've been able to maintain this amazing figure. So she posts this thing on Instagram. She's like, 2025, I'm going to get in the best shape of my life. And she's running past the screen. And I'm like, well, Lord, if you would just give me that right now. Her starting point is my goal. So just swap a do and give her some real hard work.
The booty's been sinking. The booty has been sinking with age. It's been dropping.
But I want to know how did was that something that your parents, that was very important to them, or something that you were like, I want to do this? How did you start that life of being so active?
Yeah, that's a great question. So both of my parents were very active my whole life. I would say everything that I know about being active and eating right all comes from them. I grew up with no screen time, 1 hour of TV a week. And it was basically you got home from school and you went outside. Now, soccer, my dad was an incredible soccer player. I mean, he played in Europe. He played for the Ajax soccer team, or it's called Ajax. Yeah. So he was an incredible player. So my dad got me into soccer. My mom got me into dance because when I was 2.5 years old, I was out at some party with my parents and I was dancing. And this guy looks at my mom and he goes, "Lady, you got to get that girl into dance." And so it sort of became like her science project. And so both of my parents are very hard workers. So my dad introduced soccer to me. He was my soccer coach. I advanced very quickly. And so my life growing up was basically go to school, get off school, go to my dance classes. And I was a trained ballet dancer, but I started late. I didn't start training as a ballet dancer until I was 11. But my parents, well, more on my mom's side, took it upon herself to really, like Serena and Venus vibes, so I had a ballet studio in my basement. I would get up in the morning. I would have to practice and stretch before I would even get breakfast. Then I would go to school. I would go to dance. From dance, my dad would pick me up and take me to soccer practice. And it was like the constant rival between my parents, right? Because I will say this about myself. I was really good at both. And so the body shape that I have is a mixture of both, right? So I got thunder thighs from soccer, and then I got like this little elongated torso from being a ballet dancer. And, you know, so in ballet, they were like, you need to eat less. And in soccer, they were like, you need to eat more, you know? So it was this perfect, you know, and I'm adopted. So my birth mom is like shorter and thicker, and my birth dad is taller. And the man is 55, has never worked out a day in his life, and has a six-pack.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's okay, Eric. I know that you were feeling.
Yeah, that's not fair.
I'm sorry, Eric. So I think, like, you know, that's where all the discipline came from. And that's where, you know, my love for dance and creativity came from, and my love for sports. Like, my dad had me in all sports growing up. So I was this like mix between, like, I was like a feminine tomboy, you know? Yeah, it was cool. I look back, it was hard. It was a struggle at that time because I just wanted to be with friends. But I look back now and I just go, yeah, I'm so grateful that they did that.
Yes.
You know?
I think sports are so vital for kids growing up. It teaches that level of discipline and time management. And I've got two boys. My oldest he's 20. My youngest is 18. And they're both in college. And my oldest was not the athletic. Like, he worked really hard. He could have been athletic, but he was not really into sports. You know, my youngest is the one, he's calling me every evening about the press conference after the basketball game and, you know, what they're going to do different and all the stats and all that kind of stuff. But my oldest, when I realized I finally got through to him, he was, I think, a sophomore or junior, and it was like lacrosse season. And he was debating if he was going to play, but he said, Dad, I know I need to play because I know being part of a team is really important for me to learn the lessons that I need to learn. And I'm like, man, I wish I could take the credit for teaching you that, but somehow you just get it, you know? And obviously I had said that to him many times, but I think it's so true. You know, and like some kids are interested, some kids aren't, but finding a way to get them to understand the importance of a team concept, working for someone else, and that time management, like, you know, of like, I got to get all this stuff done. You feel like you're crazy, and it was hard, I'm sure, but I'm sure it plays a large role in all the things that you've accomplished as an adult.
Absolutely. And it plays a huge role in the way that I raise my own son. Right. Yeah. And now that I look back, I'm like so grateful to my parents for teaching me about salad, exercise, you know, how to eat properly, because they didn't have to teach me how to eat junk food. Someone else was going to do that. So now I have a great concept of how to be balanced. Right. And so in the moment, it didn't feel great. But now I look back and I'm so grateful. And my love for sports and my love for creativity and all of that, they gave me an outlet to be able to express myself. And for the most part, kind of stay out of trouble. I still was like a strong rebel, but it helped.
Yeah.
I wish I would have, now older, I wish I would have given sports like a chance. You know, I was like, I think the only thing I did good in PE was I did the V-sit really good. Like I had the record in 4th grade for the V-sit. Where like you sit and you stretch past your feet. You sit down and you stretch past your feet as far as you can go. The V-sit, you sit down in a V.
Yeah.
You put your legs and then you as far as you can. I went like 11 inches.
You were like a world-class stretcher?
Yeah, I was like a world-class stretcher. Wow. But then like when it came to my mile was like 16 minutes. In 6th grade, and I was just like, what do we need to run for? How is running going to make me any money?
Stretching. It took you so long to run a mile. You had to stretch for so long to recover. Laura, I would probably just save that story.
Whatever.
We're not going to count that as a sport.
Yeah,
the V-sit.
But now, you know, I go to the gym, but that's like the extent of my, you know, and I see my daughter, you know, she also doesn't really like sports, but my husband, thankfully, he's like a surfer and a outdoorsy. He keeps them active. They're swimming right now, like doing laps, you know, and, you know, so thank God for that. But like me, if like, unless I'm in the gym, I really don't want to do work.
Yeah.
like the people are like, let's go for a walk. She's like, you want to go hiking? I'm like, why? Like, you mean for a workout? She's like, no, just to like go. And I'm like, nah. Do you want to go to lunch?
Here?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. And I don't think, like, were you taught that, Laura, when you were younger?
No.
Oh, that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
You didn't camp as a child. You didn't do any of that. My parents were like, here, go out and be in nature. And I became obsessed with it, right?
Yeah,
and so that for me was a huge way to sort of get release from what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I really enjoy it. I mean, I don't understand your type. I mean, I love you, but I'm always like, I just don't get it when people don't want to be in nature and they're like, I am good in my cement box.
I have
she
a
wants
new
to sit
plan.
by a pool in the sun.
I have a new plan. I have a new plan, and it involves walking in the afternoons. Yeah. And my neighborhood has a lot of hills and stuff, and I'm going to take Isabella with me. It'll be our bonding time. So I'm going to sleep more, and I'm going to walk in the afternoon. So
that's good.
Maybe next year we'll hike together.
I love that, because next year is 1 month away, y'all. So
and she can. Yeah, exactly. Hey,
2026 is what she meant.
Daggone it. I meant in 1 year, not next year.
12 months. 12 months.
All right. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. I know that. So we talked about on our episode before, we told my story on our second episode about what happened to me in Mexico, and how I went through that ordeal with their government and the jail and prison. And Eric, actually, that was one of the things that Alana and I really bonded on, because one of our mutual friends, who's our pastor's wife, I remember her telling me, you've got to meet Alana. She was locked up in some country too.
This is a thing.
Okay. You gotta talk to her. I'm not gonna tell her story, but you gotta talk to her. I mean, you guys will be like such good friends. And I'm thinking, like, what? Because she went to jail in another country too? Like, I don't know if I want to meet this person. So I'm in Bible study, and I sit next to Alana, not knowing who it was, and we just start chatting. And the first thing I noticed about Alana is, like, she's a little saucy, She's not like just your average white girl, She had like a little flavor to her, And I was like, I like her,
I don't want to say unsalted crackers, so I won't.
Oh, Lord.
And so we start talking, and then she tells me her story about what happened in Panama. And we're not going to get into the why, but I would like to know, I would like to talk about the what happened in 2015.
Yeah. So in 2015, in 2012, I made a decision that I was going to pack everything up and move. I was living in Vancouver at the time. I had a great job. I was doing well in my life. But I wanted to go back to school, right? There's always that pressure of like having that sort of degree or whatever it is. So I started to really get into fashion. I sold everything that I owned. I moved to Toronto to go to school for fashion. And I loved everything about it. I moved to Toronto by myself. Toronto was really my vibe. And I went to school, graduated with a 3.7 GPA. And I'm like, you know what I want to do? I want to be a famous fashion designer. And the culture and the people that I had been around, because I worked in the nightlife industry, I was a bottle service girl to pay to go to school, right? I lived that whole culture of college life. I really lived it up, let me tell you. I had a good time. But I did. We won't get into that. But I was starting to get introduced to people that are in the music industry. And so that's it. So I wanted to build my portfolio first, because you can't just jump into being a fashion designer. I didn't think at the time. So I wanted to build a portfolio. So I decided I was going to be a stylist. Now, there was this girl that did, she was a woman, I guess. She did like these huge parties at the club that I worked at. right? So she would bring in The Weeknd, and she'd bring all the NBA players, and you see like you got it all. So anyway, so I approach her one day and I say, hey, how are you? We sort of knew each other, but not really. And I just said, listen, I'm looking to style somebody. I want to be your stylist. Like, do you think it's something that we could do? And she goes, yeah. And at this time I had an Instagram page that was all about fashion. So she knew about my page. So she goes, yeah, I'm interested. The thing is I can't pay you. Right. So she was at the time was starting to move into the music industry as well. So she was working with some different artists and things like that. And she sort of played it off and made it seem like the money was coming. It wasn't here yet. And she goes, listen, you work for me for a year as my stylist, and I, in return, will bring you to every single VIP event in this entire city. And I will introduce you to everybody that you need to know as my stylist. You can style all my events, all my music videos, everything. I said, done. So that was the point where I really started to hustle, right? Because I saw the dream that could be. I just knew that I needed to do whatever it took. I didn't have kids at that time. I had all the free time in the world. So how my life looked at that time, I graduated from school. I would go to my day job at a restaurant. I would get off. I had a very dear friend of mine who had a clothing store. So he would let me come into his clothing store after hours at like 2 a.m. when I would get off work. And I would pick out looks for her. From there, I would go and meet her, set her up with all the looks, go home, sleep for a couple hours, get up in the morning, go to the shoot that she was doing, style her fully, and then go and live my merry life, right? So that's what I was starting to do, really hustling and really getting my name out there. And she was doing what she said she would do. She was bringing me to every party, to every VIP event as like, this is Alana, this is my stylist. Well, I'm starting to meet producers. I'm starting to meet Instagram models, which that was a big thing back in 2015. That was the influencer. And so these girls, anyway, sorry, let me not get ahead of myself. So I start meeting all of these people, right? Then I decide to invest into my clothing line. So I start making clothing, and I'm now wearing it to the event. So when she's introducing me, I'm wearing the clothes and doing all that. Okay. So fast forward a year and a half, she calls me. We've built a relationship. We're friends. Like, I've met her family. She's, I feel like I'm moving up in the world. People are recognizing me. They're recognizing my clothes, all of that. She calls me one day. She says, listen, I have an opportunity for you. Come down to the office. So I go down to the office. I don't know how much of this you want me to get into, but the long and short of it is that she basically, I don't know if you guys have ever gone into the mall and you leave the mall after walking into a store and you've spent $500 and you go, how the heck did this just even happen? But that salesperson just knew what to say. They knew the mood you were in. They knew what you were looking for, and they just upsell and upsell and upsell. And you're just like, yep. You don't even know why you're saying yes, right? Yeah. So she brings me into her office, and the person that was there with her was very well known in the industry. And so for me, they sort of bigged me up in a way where it was like, you're part of the family. Welcome to the family. You're now going to start styling all like this one artist that's super famous. You're going to be doing all his music videos. Like, you are part of the family. Welcome. And I felt like I had made it, like, Mama, I made it, like my dreams of being this famous fashion designer sort of were right there at my fingertips. And they go, but the thing we want to do is we want to send you on a vacation. We want you to go to Panama. We have a guy down there, one of our boys, but he's going to send back a suitcase. And I'm like, okay, is it drugs? Like the first question I ask. But the thing is they don't say yes or no. They just kind of are like, we have the best lawyers. Nothing is ever going to happen to you moving forward, and you're going to be fine. But as soon as you get back and you bring this bag back, because you're coming back, it's not normal. This girl, yeah, she did it. You remember so-and-so? Yeah, she started her business. It's because she went down and did it. So I'm starting to hear these reviews, 5 stars. And I'm like, okay, well, that's legitimate. It's like, so I just say yes, because I knew what I wanted. And I figured that everyone else had done what they needed to do to get to the top. And so I was just going to do the same thing. I wasn't thinking about, what if I go to jail? That was never a thought. So I said yes. It was no question. And I also wanted to be seen as like, someone that wasn't scared to say no.
Yeah.
Right. And I felt like they respected me and I was now part of the family. And like, now I was going to have
also,
this. Like,
Eric, I just want to tell you, we're not going to say who this person is.
No.
But this person is still super famous. So I don't even know, like I when I remember she first told me, I was like, but you had to know that it was something off. Like, but I don't even know back in 2015, if I put myself now in 2015 and that person, a part of their group was like, go do this. I don't know. I think I might have done it because of who it was.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, it's this person. They're saying they're going to have my back, whatever. Then they're going to have my back. I'm going to do this task. And then I'm going to hit my dreams. Like my dreams are going to come true, and then you have this friend who like you trust, who you've been spending almost every day with for the last year and a half. And you're like, for sure, she's not going to steer me wrong either. Right.
Yeah. And the thing about that is, I made a stupid decision. I don't ever take that away from myself. I don't not take responsibility, but I thought I was invincible. And the worst part of it is, I was thinking about this yesterday. I respected and trusted the person that asked me, and they asked me to bring someone with me. And I had a business partner at the time who I loved and respected. And I asked her to come with me. Right. And so fast forward, right? So I've put this person now into the mix with me who trusts me, and I've told them everything I know, but I don't know enough, So fast forward a few weeks, I end up in Panama, and I've basically lied to everybody about where I'm going because that was just sort of what was told, right? Just don't tell anyone where you're going. Like not everyone needs to know your business, Alana. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Not everyone needs to know my business. Like, it was sort of that attitude of like, I had a bit of an attitude at that time. I was sassy. And so, we go to Panama. The first day, this guy knocks on the door. The first night that we get there, he knocks on the door. His name is Papi, right? And he comes inside and
you can't make this up.
No, you can't. And it's like, if that wasn't the first clue, Alana.
Yeah, if you'd have phoned a friend and said, so what are your thoughts? The first guy I meet's name's Poppy. I might have been like, well. But.
So anyways, he's like, and the thing is he just kept telling us, you guys are all good. This is awesome. I know this girl really well, and you guys are going to be completely fine. Like, don't be nervous. It's not a big deal. We do this all the time. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I have an amazing time at an all-inclusive resort for an entire week. You can fill in the dots. It was a fun time. And on the second to last day, I'm in this cabana, and Papi walks by in a fedora, head down, and he's like, come with me. Come with me. I'm like, all right. So we follow him. Then we go up, and he's got a room key to our room, and there's 2 suitcases laying on the floor. They're empty. Let me tell you, there's nothing in them.
From you can see.
From what I can see. And he goes, okay, just put your clothes in there. I'm going to take the other ones. But now that I think about it, he was like profusely sweating. He was shaking. He was like real panicky, wiping all the bags down and freaking out. And, I was not really in the right state of mind. It was probably a good thing they sent me on this vacation. So I just I went with it. But I'll tell you, so we filled the suitcases. That was it. He left. I never saw him again. Okay.
So you put your clothes in the suitcases.
That was it. You leave them on the floor.
Okay.
That's it. More to come. It's coming. You'll get the answer. I know the question you're thinking, like, wait, I don't get it. So day before we leave, I'm nervous. I'm panicking. Like that God voice, our intuition is screaming at me. And I always talk about this story. 3 days before we left, there was this guy in the pool. We call him Mr. Scott. He was this white bearded ex-biker covered in gold. And he looked me in the eyes. We were chatting. We had a great chat. And he looked me in the eyes and he said, Alana, we all have choices. And then I never saw him again. Okay. Dang. It was wild. So we leave. we pack up our stuff on the morning that we're leaving, but we're staying in the hotel for the whole day because our flight isn't until the nighttime. Okay. I pack up my suitcase and I go to walk out of the room and I pull it down and it is so heavy, you guys. I knew. I was like, something's not right. This bag is full of drugs. There's no way that it's not. It was so heavy because it was a pull down, right? At that time, there weren't like the cool suitcases. So I'm starting to panic. We go down, we leave our bags, we spend the day. At the end of the day, we get on a bus to go to the airport and I'm panicking. And all I can see is that I'm going to walk through that door and I'm going to get mauled by drug dogs that are going to rip me to shreds and my life is over. Okay. And all I can think is, I do not want to ruin my face. So I'm like, so we get off. I'm weak. It's true. And we go in to the airport. We're waiting in line and I see the first drug dog walking up and it walks up and then it walks right by me and nothing happens. And I'm thinking, what? Then another drug dog comes, walks right by, nothing happens. And then it happens again, nothing happens. So now I have this sort of like newfound confidence, right? I'm going, okay, maybe it's not drugs.
Baby powder.
Maybe. That's what I was
Not
praying
my
for
problem
after.
if they gave you fake stuff.
Yeah, for real. Maybe. Let's hope. So I'm thinking it's passports or money. I'm thinking it's passports or money, right? Because that's a huge industry in Toronto. I'm like, okay, I'll be fine. Not a big deal. You know, maybe there's $1 million. So anyways, that would be nice too. So we go through security. We're waiting. Nothing happens. All of a sudden, they call the girl that I'm with, her name, over the loudspeaker. She goes into the back. She comes out and she goes, they want to look through my bag. And I'm like, damn. So I grab my phone and I go to the bathroom and I call this girl 39 times. Okay. I'm calling her. I'm like, what is in those bags? Nothing. I'm starting to panic. So she doesn't answer and I'm shaking. I can't stop shaking. So I go outside. I buy 2 bags of Doritos. Okay. So I can hold one, have one open and just be like, not making it look so obvious that I'm panicking right now because, you know, we're in Central America. Like the whole airport is lined with armed officers. Yeah. You know, you got to keep your cool. So I go sit down. Not 2 minutes after I sit down, this huge overweight, that's all I can remember. It was just huge. This guy comes up with these 2 armed officers behind him. He goes, Alana Moor. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, ven acá. Okay. Come with me. So I follow him. I just leave your stuff. I'm like, okay. So I follow him. We go in the back. And I remember it was just like silent in my brain. You know, when you're like working out with white noise and all you can hear is like tutum, tutum, tutum in your brain from your heartbeat. And then we open the door and it's just boom, chaos. And there's armed officers and there's someone yelling at me in Spanish. And there's this woman translating, where did you get these bags? Where did you get these bags? And there's one bag with this giant X on it. And the other bag is open over there on the scanner. And I'm like, I don't know. And I start lying. I'm like, oh, we got them in Panama City. I don't know whose bags they are. Yeah, I'm just kidding. I don't even know what I said at this point. And they're like, come with us. So they take us into the back. We sit down and I'm there for 5 hours. No answers. Nobody's telling us anything. And then at 2 a.m., this woman that I now know to be the prosecutor comes inside, sits down, and there's a translator. And I remember him specifically going, the best thing that you can do right now for yourself is to cooperate. The best thing that you can do is just cooperate. And I'm like, yes, sir, okay. But now I want to listen to authority, okay. So I sign everything that they ask me to sign. Now, they don't ask me if I want a lawyer. They don't offer me any help. And I can barely communicate with anybody except for the translator, but the translator works for the prosecutor. So he's not working for me, right? So he's doing everything in his power to just persuade me to basically sign away my freedom right then and there. No matter how many mistakes that they had made throughout this entire process, which they did, number one being that the drug dogs aren't even real, okay? And nothing that I could do after that point it would all work against me because I signed my life away. So people are trying to say, moving forward that I was some kingpin. It's like, I don't think a kingpin, first of all, is not going to end up in jail. Second of all, is not going to sign their life away. So I signed my life away. They end up going through the bag. Okay. Now here, Eric, is the answer to your question from 10 minutes ago. So they open up my suitcase. Okay. And when the old school suitcases, you undo that silk lining and that's where like the bones of the handle are. Mm-hmm. Right. So they undo that silk lining. And in there's this black plastic, just like cartón. It's just black plastic. Okay, it's thick. So they pull that off. Under that is hardened like foam insulator. So they spend some time picking that out. Under that, there's this thick layer of grease. Okay, so they like sort of wipe that away. And then they start pulling out these vacuum sealed blocks that are covered in stickers. And there's 11 kilos of cocaine in my bag.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I never knew that part about how
you
much
do now.
So, wow. That's like
at that point. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's true. So, so I'm panicking now. Right.
Yeah.
And they basically just go, all right, we have to take you in because we are pretty sure that this is drugs. We don't know for sure, but it looks like it.
Are they not asking you like who sent you here? Who do you work for?
Nope.
Anything?
Nope. So there's this thing, they call it like the Banana Republic, right? And so you are guilty until proven innocent. So according to them, it was just me. Now, the story gets deeper than that, Eric, because you can fast forward. There's so much more that comes with it, but the whole thing is a setup, right? And so basically what happens is the people on top that we all know, they have mules. They have people that they give to the government so that the government can show percentages at the end of the year on the war against drugs, right? And those percentages can be up to par, but the people on top are never getting taken away. Right? There's nothing happening to them. So they don't care.
Right. The problem doesn't go away. They just check the boxes.
It doesn't go away. They check the boxes and they raise the percentages, right? So that, it looks like a safer country so people will want to come there, right? So that's it. They handcuffed me. They put me in the back of this like rickety old truck where I just had visions of like the worst things happening to me. So I was like, I had one hand sort of like pulled out of my handcuff because I was with two men and I didn't know what was going to happen. Like I heard horror stories about what happened to women that would get arrested in foreign countries. Right. Yeah. And so the whole time I have one hand halfway out just in case I have to fight for myself. And I have my hand on the lock of the door because I'm like, if I have to open this door and roll out, I will. So they take me to this place that it was a men's prison, but it was also the police station. So they ankle shackled me and they wrist shackled me to a chair for 3 days. And I got one bottle of water. I got one meal. But that was sent to me by the men in the prison that found out that I was there. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have had any water and nothing to eat. I had no shower, no toilet paper, nothing. And I was in my winter clothes because we were in February, right? I'm on my way back to Toronto, but we're in the dead of summer in Panama. So you can imagine how I smelt. And I basically just sat there for 3 days. They gave me one phone call. They brought my phone out to me. And I pretended to look for my mom's phone number. But what I was really doing was deleting all evidence off of my phone. Because I just didn't know what to do. I was like, anything that I can do to help myself in this point, I'll do it. Doesn't matter. So I deleted all evidence off my phone. They never found any evidence on my phone because of that moment. I remember I called my mom. They gave me one phone call and she didn't answer. So you can imagine what it was like for her to get this message. I was like, hey mom, so listen, we got to talk. Like I'm in Panama. Things are not going well. So basically, I don't show up at my apartment. The guy that I'm dating at the time shows up at my apartment and I'm not there. And so people are starting to panic. And so he ended up calling the embassy to be like, she never came home. Something's wrong. And yeah, so it just kind of went from there. So after 3 days, I was taken to court where I was sentenced to 6 months investigation because, like I said, you're guilty until proven innocent. So there's no getting off on parole, you know?
Right.
And I was looking at 12 years because I wanted to take responsibility. There were 2 bags, right? So one had 11, one had 8 because I was with somebody else, remember? And that was it. Just like that.
How long did you end up getting sentenced?
81 months. So that's almost 7 years, right?
And how long did you end up actually spending in there?
So almost 4.5 years. And then I did 2 years of probation where I couldn't leave Panama.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a long time.
Yeah.
It was a long time.
So you were in Panama for 6.5 years?
Something like that. Yeah. I was in, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So was there ever a time that you thought about or wanted to, I mean, let's just be honest, out the person who sent you there? I mean, you obviously knew that, hey, I didn't know everything, but, you know, they told me enough to be dangerous, and then I was just kind of doing this. Did you ever feel like, I'm sure that had to go through your head, like, you know what, this is crazy. They took advantage of me because I was looking for an opportunity. Yes, I'm responsible. I made the decision, but like they're going to do this to somebody else too.
Yeah, well, they did, and they have. You know, it's weird. I never did. I never outed them because it wouldn't have done anything to help me. And, you know, the person that is responsible for it, I think is capable of hurting me on a different level if they wanted to. I don't think they ever would. I've never been afraid for my life, but I sort of just felt like, you know, what is it going to do for me? What is it going to do for me? What was it going to do for me? If they didn't fly down physically to Panama and go, yeah, she's right, it was us. Nothing was going to happen, right? They would be investigated, sure, in Canada. That's great. But, you know, but I will tell you this, and this is me being real honest. You know, you see in like the rapping life, right? A lot of people will do time for other people and get out and they'll get a check for 3 million, 4 million. You know, I feel like I would like them to come and write me a check because I lost everything. But, you know, and would I like to have a conversation with them? Absolutely. You know, about 2 weeks ago, I was in Toronto and I was on my way home from the mall to do this speaking competition, this international inspirational speaking competition that's about my story. And I'm 5 minutes from my mom's house, 2 minutes in a car, and I see the girl. And she's outside walking her dog. And I just thought, you know, that's interesting. You know, my dad goes, well, did you stop? Did you talk to her? You just go punch her in the face. I said, I'm not going to ever. I never would. I actually would thank her. Yeah. I would thank her. Yeah. So, you know, they live with that at night, not me.
One of the reasons I wanted to bring you onto this show is because of the things that you did while you were inside. I mean, think about it, Eric. Most people would take in that situation and just completely, I know, like 4 years, I did 153 days. You did 4.5 years. You know, I just don't know obviously I believe that if that is something that I would, you know, meant to go through, that I would get through it somehow. But the mental strength that it took, when did you do a switch, right? Because there totally was times, I'm sure, in the beginning where you felt helpless. But when did you make that switch that you were like, you know what, I'm going to use this time to better myself? Yeah,
great question. So I would say about 1.5 years in.
Wow.
Probably 2 days in, they asked me, they brought me into administration. They said, what can we do to help you? You know, what's going to help you in this situation? And I thought, I need to put myself in a position of leadership. You know, I was saying this to Laura a few weeks ago, like it's really important to be in a position of leadership if you want to be safe while you're in prison. And I wasn't about to put myself in a position of leadership at becoming a gang member. So I wanted to teach fitness. And I was not a fitness instructor, but going back to your first question, my parents and my background saved me. It did, because I've always been in the gym. I've always been active. And I took everything that I knew from my ballet training, my soccer training. I did ballet classes. Like, I'd have chairs stacked up and I'd be teaching girls how to plie and point their toes and turn them out. And that's what I did. So it was about 1.5 years in. It was really hard for the first 1.5 years. I would say it was hard the whole time, but I felt like I was still rebellious. Did that make sense? Like, I was so angry. Right. And so I remember the anger really came out. Like, I still had discipline and things like that. I was working out every day and all of that. But I had this moment where this guard was really bullying me and picking on me hard, badly. And it was really detrimental. And everyone in prison has a cell phone. Okay. It's very normal. We can get into that after. But where they hide it too, we can get into that. But so everyone in prison has a cell phone. Okay. So I had a cell phone for 2 6-month periods. The rest of the time I didn't, because I wanted to be focused on my future, but I did for 2 6-month periods. Okay. So she kind of knew that, but everyone knew that. And she was just on me. Okay. She would tell guards to not let me outside to work out. She wouldn't let me come outside to phone my family. She would not allow food to come in for me. She would just do everything to try and bring my experience to create it to be worse. Okay. So I snapped one day and I went after her. I'd had enough. And a whole thing happened outside. And I remember I just saw red. And I'm not a fighter. Okay, you guys, I'm not a fighter. That's not who I am. But I was so angry. And I remember I went after her, and these 2 girls just like crossed their arms and held me back. And I was so angry, and I wanted to take it all out on her. And I remember when it was done, I got probation for 6 months. I wasn't allowed visits. I wasn't allowed to do activities. I wasn't allowed to do anything. So they said. And I remember I went for a walk around the back with this woman named Anna Yancey. And she was like, girl, she'd been in jail since she was 18, she's 40 years old. She got shipped from Miami back to Panama. Like, she's been in for a minute. She was like, girl, this is not who you are. Like, you need to change. You need to go and sit down on that toilet. You need to pray to God. The toilet, because that was the only place you could get quiet. Let me clarify. So, and I remember I sat down, I grabbed my Bible, because I was really connected to God while I was inside. I felt like, right? Isn't it interesting, right? When our life hits the ground, that's where we want to connect, right? So I said, I remember just feeling this feeling where it just kind of, the voice or whatever it was like, you need to do every single thing that you can do to improve your life in any way that you can. So you need to be active all the time. And so that was it. That was the shift for me. So then I decided to learn Spanish fluently and, do these public speaking competitions. That was the first time I got on stage and spoke publicly. I was designing clothing lines, tons of different clothing lines. I was reading hundreds of books, and I made that decision because the thing was, I was going to lose the time. I knew that, but I didn't want to waste the time. And the thing is I knew as soon as I walked in, I had 2 choices, right? To either be constructive or destructive with my time. Now, let me tell you something. When you are in the devil's house, it is easy to give up. It is welcomed, right? Come, do everything to destroy your life, because your life is over, right? Because there's no tangible ending. They didn't tell me, hey, on July 28th of this date, you'll get out. That tangible ending wasn't there, because I was fighting to reduce my sentence. But you can also make mistakes and make your sentence go 5 years longer, 10 years longer. I watched it happen. So there's no tangible ending. So it's really hard to to focus on goals. And so that was that moment that I switched and I was a different person, right? I became disciplined and I became focused. And if it wasn't for that, then I would have chosen the path of destruction. But I had chosen the path of destruction so much in my life, and where had it gotten me? Right? So it wasn't this the perfect time to sit down and look at myself in the mirror and have those hard conversations of these are the shitty things that you are doing in your life. Maybe it's time to change. Maybe you're here for a reason. Maybe you're not just here because you made one bad decision. Maybe it's a accumulation of things that you've done. Maybe it's your attitude. Maybe it's the way you see the world. Maybe it's the way you treat others. Maybe it's the goals that you didn't have. Maybe your goals need to change.
Right.
Right? Maybe being in the club until 4 a.m. and doing drugs and drinking, maybe that isn't the life for you anymore. Is that what you're going to do when you leave? You're going to go back to the same people that put you here? And so those were the hard conversations I had to have with myself. And it hurt. It sucked. It sucked. And that's why most people don't change. Because it sucks. You know, I'm not going to sugarcoat it and go, oh, it's this wonderful thing that when you make a decision to change, it's like when you make a decision to lose weight, you're connected to the end goal of the lost weight. You're not thinking about the fact that on Monday, now you have to get up and go to the gym and eat differently and drink water. And then all of a sudden you go, yeah, I'm not willing to do this. Well, then guess what? You're just not willing. That's the only thing separating you from the person that did it. That's it. It's not easy for anyone, you know?
I think, I say this to patients all the time, and I think it's applicable in so many walks of life. And I think you really are describing this in your own story. We all have our moments in our life where we hit our proverbial rock bottom. My patients have heard this plenty from me, probably more than they want to, but I think it's true. And I say that because I literally look at them and say, I have not suffered through some of the struggles that you've suffered through, but I've had my own battles that you may or may not know about. And the thing is when you go through the proverbial rock bottom, that is when you're finally ready to do anything to not feel like that anymore. You know, like I'm sure there were times leading up to that when you partied hard and the next day you feel like crap, or you were this close to getting yourself into a mess and you're like, oh man, you know, how many times have we all on this podcast, I know for a fact, because of the story you're telling and stories that Laura and I have talked about, where you're like, God, if you get me out of this one, man, I'm done. I'm good.
Yep.
God, if you get me out of this one, no, I promise you this time, I am on the straight and narrow, right? But for whatever reason, those times weren't the proverbial rock bottom. It wasn't low enough. And unfortunately, some people, when they get low enough, they don't ever get out, you know, in a variety of ways. But when you get there, you are able to say whatever it takes. You want me to go to therapy. You want me to go to recovery. If it's an addiction problem, you want me to change X, Y, and Z, the hard stuff. You're finally willing to do it, you know? Yeah. But that weight loss might be you finally had that heart attack. And now that Monday morning, it's hard, but you'll do it. And I think what happens, and I always tell people, and I'm telling this story because I want to know your answer on this. I always say, we as humans, when we get tough enough, we say, okay, I'm going to do it. I'll go to whatever means I have to do to get better. But when we start feeling better, we start saying the most dangerous 3 words that I think someone can say when they're getting out of their rock bottom. And those 3 words are, I got this. And it sounds like what we're supposed to say. We're tough, we're strong, we're mentally ready to tackle it. But when we say, I got this, unfortunately, we are now saying, I no longer need what got me out of my mess or out of my rock bottom. I can handle it on my own. And for those patients, I say that first 6 months, it's going to be amazing because you're going to lose this weight, even if you're not trying real hard. And you're going to say, I got this. But what I need you to know is we got this, because the things you did to get this result, if you drop those things, if you don't continue those things for the rest of your life, you'll end up back in that mess. You know, and I've got a really good friend I'll never forget who had an addiction problem. And he lives an amazing life now and is so charitable. You'd never know it, but I remember him talking about being on vacation. And this was 10 years after he was clean. A great family man. You know, I used to be part of a men's group with him until it became my OR day, and I just couldn't go on those mornings anymore. But he was there for me when I needed somebody. And I remember him talking about going on vacation. Said, well, I had a meeting on Monday and Wednesday morning. I'm like, what meeting? Why an AA meeting? I'm like, you used to go to AA meetings? Like, you've been good for 10 years. And he's like, dude, why would I ever change? Like, why would I stop doing what fixed me or what helped me? You know? And I think that, so for you to talk about those things, it's not just what was the moment that changed your life for the better, but what things did it instill in you to never, ever, ever want to go back?
I think when you say what things did it instill in me, you're thinking about like creating the habits.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not just reminding yourself of where you were, but like I'm a firm believer that our scars make us who we are.
Yeah.
You know, those scars, they suck at the time, but we can reflect back on them and we're grateful for them. When we change our perspective for the better, we see those scars and we're grateful. It reminds us of where we were, but it now reminds us of who we've become. And we're almost proud of them, you know, because it's molded us. And so you obviously, your life has changed and you would never be tempted to say, yeah, I'll go get that suitcase for you. Because someone took advantage of your vulnerability. You were this close of getting the break you were hoping for. And many of us would have made the same decision. I don't care what anybody says. It's easy to sit back now and say no, but shoot, I'm sure I would have probably have too if it was something that I wanted badly as well.
Yeah.
But now, you know, there's levels of discipline and guardrails that I think that we put up in our lives moving forward, and I'm sure you've applied that to how you help people now and how you speak to people.
Absolutely. I think that for me, my biggest thing was my lack of discipline. And I noticed that very quickly, and my lack of good habits. And I think that a couple of the most important things for me were learning to take responsibility, because it's so easy to blame everything else. And the other thing was nothing is ever a good enough excuse to give up. Right. So it's really easy. It's really easy in my situation right now to find an excuse to not get out of bed and do my 2-hour workout and then journal and then, you know, write a business plan today and then work on my Spanish because no one was coming. No one's coming. Guess what? No one's coming. So even when you're not motivated, nobody is coming. So it's that mentality of the habits that you create are the habits that you will keep. Right. And so when you talk about that too, it's like, yeah, you think that every day in 6 months you're going to be motivated. No, you're absolutely not. But once I started to get my mind, body and soul sort of shifted in a different way, I was reminded that even though it's hard today, I have to remember the worst of the worst. It's like going back and remembering how it felt. Now, just sometimes we make mistakes and we go back and absolutely, of course. But taking responsibility for your life and stopping this whole game of the sky's blue, today's Tuesday, I'm upset, someone cut me off in traffic, I don't feel like it, this person pissed me off, and enough is enough, right? So at a certain point, it can't be a meme that inspires you. It can't be a quote that inspires you. It has to be the fact that you just simply make the decision in the moment, which is hard, right? Because when we take responsibility for ourselves, we have no one to blame.
Right. Yeah.
It's so much harder, but the end result is so much better. And when I walked out of prison, I was better than the day that I stepped in. Yeah. Because I started to focus on the little things, make my bed every day, floss my teeth before bed, go on my knees and pray, right? These little tiny habits that I do not stop doing, like hoy en día, like today, because I started them there, right? Those habits that you keep are the reason why you become the person that you become. And so if you talk to people that are typically really incredible athletes, right? Or they're successful in their business. I mean, look at the both of you. Let's talk about the habits that you keep, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the focus that you have, the discipline, right? You have to be disciplined in certain areas of your life.
Yeah.
And it's going to be hard.
Yep. That's so
yeah.
good.
And I don't think we ever stop. You know, I can obviously tell that you don't. I know Laura doesn't. I don't. And there's times that you're constantly trying to develop more healthy habits because that part of that's what motivates you, but you never become complacent with like, I'm okay. Yeah, you know, I had a patient not too long ago. She came in, you know, I have nurse practitioners and PAs that help with a lot of the follow-up. So one of the downsides of as busy as I am is I don't always get to see all those visits afterwards, and I miss that. Right. But, you know, we have the one day I'm in clinic, that's the day that if somebody wants to see me, then they'll come in on that day. And a lot of times I just get to see them and hug them and hear about how life's going. And, sometimes it's been a while since I've seen these people, so they have to show me a picture, before they walk in. And I'm like, I think because they just want to see me like be so shocked, or, they like to make me cry. Laura knows all about that with me. But I was talking to this girl, and it was really interesting because I'm a big preacher of habits. Like, I literally listen to the chapters of Atomic Habits in my car when I drive back and forth to work. It's like I listened to chapter 15 this morning, and I think that I'm always telling people when we do talk about weight loss, we have these goals. Like, they have this goal of what they want to weigh. And I get it. My goodness, we call it weight loss surgery. So how would you not have a weight loss goal? But I talked to them about the importance of habits, because goals leave short-lived happiness. Goals leave lifelong results.
Yeah.
And I was talking to her about that. She's many years out. I mean, this girl's run like 10Ks now, and she looks amazing. But she's like, the hardest thing for me is I worked extremely hard, and I lost all this weight, and I hit my goal. And I called my dad, and I said, I hit my goal today. And he's like, okay, that's great. And she said, I don't know what I expected. She's like, but no confetti came down from the ceiling, no streamers shot in the air, no balloons fell down. She's like, it was a Tuesday, and guess what? I had to go to the gym, and I had to go to work. And I said, yeah, because when we focus so hard on goals, number one, you don't enjoy the ride getting there. And number two, you hit your goal and you're like, now what? That's the only thing that's motivated me.
Yeah.
You could have been in prison and said, my goal is my exit date. And when you hit that, you'd have been like, now what? What do I do with that? I think Laura and I see patients on health and wellness journeys, and they focus so much on goals and now what? And I try to get people celebrate those habits. And you can't call it a habit if you're not doing it routinely. But we don't get that instant gratification. So it's hard, like you said, getting up in the morning, doing the hard things, but believing that it matters and finding the joy in doing something that doesn't get Instagram gratification or celebrations from the people around you when you're doing them. That's a mindset, I believe. I think that's a perception that you have to take on, and a mindset to find the joy in the simple things of the things you just detailed in your day, knowing the value of it long term.
I was just going to say, you talked about your friend that was in addiction, and they talk about this in AA a lot. If you want to change your life, you have to change one thing. Everything. That's it. So for me, I had to look at myself and go, okay, I have to change one thing. Everything. Yeah. And so that's it. And sometimes it's not this sort of tangible thing that, we hear people talk about it, inspirational speakers and all of that. And like you just said, Eric, it's Atomic Habits. I've read it. I have it here. I listen to it all the time. It's very important to me because everything is a habit. That's the thing, right? Every single thing is a habit. You getting up every morning and saying, I'm not going to the gym, that's a habit. You getting up every day and not doing the thing, that's a habit. Getting on your phone at night before you go to bed, that's a habit, right? And so changing it is hard when we've become so connected to it emotionally. But those end results feel really good. And doesn't it feel good to just feel good for what you've accomplished without, the Instagram accolades and all of that?
Right.
It felt really good to me to go, hey, I'm supposed to give up here. Everyone's waiting for it.
Yeah. And all my enemies, really easy to give up.
Ooh, child, let me tell you, being numb feels better when you're in a place that is hellish, right? And everyone around me, I watch them numb every single day, drugs every single day, sleeping until 1 p.m. every single day. Meanwhile, I looked at it as, I sort of looked at it as training. Yeah. This is the time to train for my life. I don't have any bills to pay. I don't have anywhere to be. I don't have any commitments to anybody. I don't have to take care of anybody else but myself. So why don't I look at it as this place is in Mike Tyson? He did this interview and someone just said he did 3 years in prison. And they said, wasn't prison so hard? Like, what was wasn't it just the worst time of your life? And he goes, nah, man, it was the best time of my life. I had peace. I could focus on my head. I could focus on my heart. I could focus on the things that I wanted to change.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way. Yes, I had chaos around me. Don't get me wrong. But if I focused on that, then that's where my energy would be. But instead, I focused on, I have all this time. Let me use it wisely and learn Spanish and, do the things that are going to help me so that the day that I leave, because I'm not here for murder, I'm not here for life. Right. And I promise you, I'm not going to kill anybody so that I get a second sentence. That wasn't going to happen. Right? So it was that decision. There's a book that I read called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. It is the book that changed my life. Okay. I live by the quote. It talks about that, the last of human freedoms. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way.
I love that.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, Alana, your story is so inspiring, and I just really feel like it correlates with a lot of our listeners who may be going on different journeys that they feel like get really hard and they get stuck. And there's so many great sound bites and quotes that I'm going to be holding tight to from this episode. Where can our listeners find you if they want to follow your story and follow all of the different adventures that you're on and the new opportunities?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So they can, on Instagram, Alana Moor Speaks, ALANAMOOR, no E, Speaks. AlanaMoor.com. My website is currently being redone, but I built something up there. And so Alana Moor Speaks is where I am the most. Alana Moor on LinkedIn. And then on YouTube, all of the podcasts that I've done are on there, which is really awesome. But most of my life and things that I talk about and adventures that I'm on, I'm an Instagram girl, a little bit of TikTok, but not too much.
Well, we're definitely going to link all of your links in this episode.
Thank you
so much for being here. And we will see you next time on the Pop Culture Podcast.